Hey everyone, welcome to the second installment of Scarlet and Gray Weekly, Coach Conley's Corner here at NBC4i.com. We're also broadcasting today on Facebook Live, so if you're on the NBC4 Facebook page, you can watch us there as we entertain your Buckeye questions and curiosities for the next little while. Coach Bill Conley joins me here. So the first question we'll get out of the way because it's the one that everybody has been asking this week about. Nick Bosa's departure from the football team, it's a big deal. It is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
It's not like you lose the best player in the country and get better. But
no. How
do they withstand it? What happens here? Jonathan Cooper coming back to the lineup this week certainly helps because that's the position he plays. But what else has to happen to make this better for Ohio State?
Well, first of all, the guys that replace Nick Bosa have got to play well. We've got to move some guys around and find the four best pass rushers in pass situations, the guys that are best in running situations to stop the run. And then we're going to have to mix up things a little bit more, Jared. You just can't rely on the four guys rushing the quarterback to get enough pressure. You're going to have to blitz more, bring corners in, make strong safety, linebacker blitzes, and much more line stunts that we've done.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about line stunts.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with what that means, explain to folks what the line is trying to accomplish to try to gain a pass rush to throw off the quarterback. How does that work?
Well, it's try to confuse the blocking scheme. So what you'll do is take, for example, your two inside tackles, and you'll loop them one way or the other. And then you can also bring an end inside of them. You might bring a linebacker blitz with it. So in other words, you're just doing a lot of movement to try to confuse the blocking scheme.
I think sometimes we get a little bogged down in the weeds a little bit about what these things are. Another thing is a corner blitz or a zone blitz. A lot of people hear that zone. If you're watching NFL football, for example, on Sunday, you'll hear the announcers throw out a lot of zone blitz. And you'll say, oh, that's cool. Not really know what it means. Yeah. What is a zone blitz blitz? Again, how could Ohio State use that as a strategy?
Yeah, a zone blitz is basically a blitz, but staying in zone coverage behind it. So you're not picking up guys only if they flare out. You'll have an end peel off and take a guy or something like that. So that is a zone blitz. A corner blitz means you actually bring the corner usually from the boundary side, back side of the quarterback so he doesn't see him coming. And you'll loop your line to the field.
And we've been talking about what this game is going to be like. We have Scarlet and Gray Weekly coming up tomorrow night on NBC4, and it's always interesting when Ohio State goes to Purdue. So that'll be a part of our discussion here this afternoon. We would love your input in the show, and there's a couple ways you can reach us. You see at the bottom of the screen there, @JaredNBC4, J-E-R-O-D. That is my Twitter handle. I've got my computer. Hey, I brought this thing out here for a reason, not just to look cool. To absolutely, we'll be happy to take your questions, get them to Coach Conley here over the next few minutes. You can hit me up there. You can email me, jsmalley@wcmh.com. And again, we're also broadcasting today on Facebook Live. So if you're watching the NBC4 Facebook stream, you can watch it. I've actually got it pulled up here right now. If you put a comment there in the NBC4 Facebook stream, we will certainly interact with you. And I see, we've already got a few in there, so we'll go ahead and talk to some of the folks here. Most folks saying hi. Go Bucks, OHIO, appreciate that. One of the curiosity is moving forward. Well, Chris makes a good point about how Ohio State moves forward. They've already been playing without him. You're right in a certain respect. Yes, they've played 4.5 games without Nick Bosa, so there is an adjustment period. But I think in the long-term thinking, Urban Meyer and the coaching staff were thinking Nick Bosa was coming back. I think they were hoping that long-term they were going to have him back there when they played perhaps Michigan State or Michigan or a Big Ten championship game or the bowl game or a playoff games. You know what I'm saying there? That could have been 5 or 6 games at the end of the season. They could have had him. You have to think about that in terms of long-term planning for your season. That's why we're saying that's why the Buckeyes have to move forward now, because they know that's not a factor for their future. Tyreek Smith and Tyler Friday, 2 true freshmen, are going to play a lot of minutes now.
Absolutely. In the heat of battle. One thing you don't want is too many true freshmen starting. And the case is they have to play. Good thing we have some depth there. And they'll make mistakes because they're young guys. But they'll get better as the season goes. And hopefully by the time we get toward the Big Ten championship determining games like Michigan, they've made huge strides.
Now, they've certainly played a lot, and they're certainly talented. I mean, 4 5-star guys that everybody else wanted. If they weren't playing at Ohio State, they'd be playing right now for somebody else. So that's how good they are. They're going to be on the field. Linda is watching us from Kindleville, Indiana. Where's Kindleville, Indiana?
Never been there.
Never been there?
Never been there.
I wonder if it's near West Lafayette. But hi, Linda. I hope you're doing well, and Buckeyes will be coming your way here Saturday evening. Somebody else on here, Linda, says they just got to keep up the good work. Certainly on offense, the good work's there. This is a passing offense that has been nothing short of extraordinary. They're on pace to set, I don't know, 75 school records on offense. That's not the real number, but it's been a ton of offensive proficiency through the air with Dwayne Haskins. Purdue has a 92nd ranked total defense in the country, Bill. Any reason to think that Haskins production slows down this week?
Well, obviously he has done his amazing play this year against everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, he gets better. What has he had 500 or 5 games in a row over 300 yards?
That's right, and 2 straight over 400.
Excellent. And you know what thing about it is that he gets better as he goes through this season, and he's really good in pressure situations. That's how you really measure a quarterback. Does he throw the ball in there and complete passes and keep drives alive when you have to? And he is a winner in that way. So, you know, Dwayne Haskins could go down as maybe the greatest quarterback to ever play at Ohio State if he continues to be as successful as he's been.
What's interesting about that, by the way, if you were following along, Kendallville, Indiana is 30 miles north of Fort Wayne. I got the update.
Okay.
30 miles north of Fort Wayne. One of the interesting things about Haskins, too, when you look at the dynamic of what he brings to the offense, Urban Meyer was talking this week about the run-pass options that we always love to call RPOs, run-pass options. They've become such a fad in both college and professional football. With Dwayne Haskins, your RPO is like a PPO. It's a pass-pass option.
Yes.
Because his arm is so good. He's so accurate down the field. It's a different way to run your offense. And I think a lot of people are concerned because when you get into third and short, the tendency is we got to run this ball, we got to pick up this first down, we got to grind this out. That's Ohio State football traditionally. Yeah. This year, it's almost like they're more comfortable playing 3rd and 8 than they are 3rd and 1 because of Haskins' abilities.
And because he's got outstanding receivers. Let's not forget that.
That's true, too.
He has a lot of confidence in the guys around him. You know, Paris Campbell and KJ Hill are 3rd and 4th in the Big Ten in receptions, yardage, and they're playing at a high level. But here's the thing. When you have a run-pass option, you got to think about your offensive line. Is it going to be a run? Is it going to be a pass? Mm-hmm. And then the call's made, and then you've got to be able to execute the technique involved with whatever the check was to. So you either pass or run. And sometimes that's not real effective in the run game. Sometimes in the run game, you want to have a designated run, or you could even have right-left run, depending upon the defensive alignment. And that way you know for sure if you're an offensive lineman, at least you're coming off the ball on the snap.
Right, that your pressure's on the fingers, and you're launching into the defender. That, I think, is interesting. I think that's a factor that maybe we don't think about a lot from an observational standpoint of why the play develops a certain way. The other thing that's interesting about Ohio State with the run game is, you know, we know the talent in the backfield. We know J.K. Dobbins with a little sliver can go a long way. The same thing with Mike Weber. Boy, his speed that he's developed over the last year and a half, he just needs some room. And I think the big surprise is that on those 3rd and 4th down situations, the defensive ends, they're just crashing. They have no disregard for anything because they are crashing in and meeting those guys in the backfield. There's no contest, Bill, on 3rd and shorts right now.
Yeah, the read option is really only good if you have on a regular basis. If you got a quarterback can run the ball also. That's not Dwayne Haskins. That's not what we want him to do either.
Yeah.
So most of the runs right now are just basically the zone play off of the read option with some jet sweeps coming around, some things like that. And you can run a little counter with a single back and maybe a toss sweep or an outside zone. I think what we have to do, I think the future is for the rest of the season, we've got to do something to get a 2-back backfield. I'm not saying Weber and Dobbins. I'm saying a tight end to act as a fullback.
Like a blocking back, yeah.
And you can run anything. You still run your passing game because you got him for pass protection. But you also have isolation plays, off-tackle power plays. You have counter plays with him leading through. Isolations, a various number of plays, which would make you much more versatile as an offense and tough to key on.
You know, I've had an idea about that. You know what I'd do?
What would you do?
I'd take Robert Landers. He's defensive tackle. I would move him to fullback. Let him wear 67 because that's a great fullback number. and have him try, because I love his tenacity when it comes to meeting a blocker. Even though he's a little undersized for a defensive tackle, I think that guy would be a great lead blocker for
well, he's
that
got
kind of guy.
Good pad level.
Absolutely.
He's a little shorter.
Low man wins.
That's right, especially in the run game.
One of the first rules of football. Hi to Katie Robinson. Katie is watching from Decatur, Arkansas.
All right.
Welcome, Katie. I hope you're not confused. I know these are similar colors to the University of Arkansas, but we love the fact you're here, so thank you for watching.
Right.
Chris asks, or basically more so says, hope the defense starts playing better than last week. And I think you could have said that in all 7 games this year, or most of the 7 games this year. So, Bill, what has to happen? Yesterday, we talked to Bill Davis, the linebacker coach, who we don't hear from very often, to be honest. And Bill had a very confident take on the development of the young defenders, saying that he sees them turning a corner. He sees them getting to a place where they're going to play at a championship level because they're not making the same mistake multiple times. They have done that this year. Greg Schiano actually said that this week. But they're making the mistakes less frequently. And they're starting to gain some consistency. Do you see that in this group, just based on what you've seen through the 7 games? Do you see them trending to a place where you could see them playing at a championship level?
Absolutely, but the problem is Ohio State fans and us as coaches, we want to see it happen quicker. You know, you get it done. And but I think the linebackers have played much better, starting with the Penn State game. They're making plays. Pete Warner has done a tremendous job. Malik Harrison, unfortunately, he's out, but he had been showing major improvement. So
he should be back this week, by the way.
Absolutely, and that will help. The thing is, we have got to get off the field a little more. You know, last week there was a bunch of long drives. 2 of over 75 yards, and we've got to get some 3-and-outs. We got to make the other punter earn his scholarship this week, and also obviously stop the running attack. It was not good last week. One guy ran the ball for over 150 yards against us. We can't let that happen. We only ran the ball for less than 3 yards per carry last week.
That's right, 92 total yards rushing last week, not a number you're accustomed to hearing with Ohio State. One of the email questions I had this week, Bill, related to that was about 3-and-outs, because this is a defense that has not been able to get off the field on 3rd down all that much. Last week against Minnesota, a couple of 75-yard drives by the Gophers in the first half of that game. One of the curiosities that I have on this, Bill, why do you think there has been a striking difference from the first half to the second half in these games? Let me give you a couple examples.
Okay.
At Penn State, Nittany Lions were lighting it up in the first half, yet they only had, 14 points, I believe, in the first half. But lighting it up for yardage. Indiana, 300-plus yards first half. Minnesota, around 300 yards first half. Second half, far less rushing yards.
Right.
What is happening that you think allows this defense to make that transition? And I guess the second half of that question, what do they have to do to start better?
Right. Yeah, you always want to start fast, and especially this week it's going to be important away from home.
No doubt.
But I think what you do, first of all, in the second half, the coaches at halftime, I think, have made great adjustments. So we hand that to the coaching staff. They've changed some things, mixing up coverages, I've noticed especially. So that's one thing. And saying that, I think the fatigue factor starts wearing on the other team.
Sure does.
You know, we've had some good depth. Now, we don't have the depth up front that we had early in the year, but we have enough depth that we can wear down the opponent by the 3rd and 4th quarter, and that is a mark of great recruiting by Ohio State.
So you think it's an issue where, do you think in the first half that this group has a comfortable idea of a game plan, or do you feel like they're getting caught off guard?
That's a good question. I think we've seen some things that other teams have done that do catch us off guard, and that happens every time you play somebody.
Sure.
Especially teams that, you know, are not the favorite going in. They're going to try something to try to make you – here's what you try to do as an offense. You try to make the other team think too much, and therefore you can't execute your basic fundamentals and techniques. So we've definitely seen a lot of that. And another part, you always get the best shot of the opposing team at the beginning of the game. And so it takes time to adjust to that.
That's a good point. And I think about that because a lot of times it's the inverse. It's starting fast on defense, getting some big stops early. In the second half, you run out of gas.
Right.
This defense is doing it the other way. They're coming on strong in the second half. One of the other things that they're doing that they're not getting a lot of credit for, especially from the fan base, is they are limiting points.
Keeping them out of the end zone.
This is a top 25 scoring defense in the country. They're 24th right now in scoring defense. They're not giving up touchdowns. And, you know, look, granted, Minnesota missed a couple field goals last week, but they're not giving up cheap points.
Right.
They've been able to find a way to keep the opponents limited on the scoreboard. For whatever reason, you go back all 7 games and find a different reason to diagnose it, but that's what the consistency is they're finding ways to keep the points limited. And when they've given up those big plays, those big 80-yard gashes, they've found a way to come back and make enough plays to make up for it. I think that's
right.
I guess that might be the sign that you're looking for, that it's a defense that potentially is turning a corner.
Yeah, and you know, it's the old story, it's bend but don't break.
Yeah.
As long as you can keep them out of the end zone, you're okay. The only thing is you can't let the other team have the ball so much your offense doesn't get it.
Right.
But we've been getting the ball enough, and we've been taking advantage of field position. We scored 10 points off of turnovers last week in relation to field position and then be able to take it in. So that's the one thing about it. We have really, to really finish strong, though, we need to come out of the gate fast and faster, especially on the defensive side.
Katie messages back. She's our viewer in Arkansas. She grew up in Columbus.
All right.
So, all right, Katie. Appreciate you representing Columbus out in Arkansas. A couple other notes here for Ohio State this week. They're going to play at a place that they traditionally have had some difficulties, especially since the year 2000. Bill, we've been talking about this. Remember the 2002 game, Holy Buckeye, 4th down, the long ball, Krenzel to Michael Jenkins. That saves Ohio State's national championship season. In 2011, the Buckeyes went to overtime and lost. That was the Braxton Miller year. Luke Fickell was the interim coach. Lost in overtime in that game. That's a game they really should have won. They've had some moments that have been very difficult in West Lafayette, much more so than the other Big Ten road venues in that same period where the Buckeyes have mostly dominated. Yeah,
I mean, 4 times since 2000 we've lost out there. But one thing that Purdue does well, they play well at home at night. And that's always been the case. You know, one reason why they are able to compete, they have a great tradition of quarterbacks. You know, it's called the cradle of quarterbacks. They've had a number of quarterbacks. 3 actually, Drew Brees, Len Dawson, and Bob Greasy have all went on the NFL and won Super Bowls. Now, they'll put that up against anybody.
Wow.
So
never thought about that before.
Yeah, they throw the ball, and they have confidence in throwing. 2 out of every 3 plays are going to be passes. So we have to play great pass defense and also get a great pass rush.
Well, let's talk about the way that Purdue throws the ball. Again, they're the 7th-ranked passing offense in the nation. They throw it for about 330 yards a game. David Blough's their current quarterback at Purdue. He was not the starter at the beginning of the season. He had been beaten out. Sindelar had beaten him out for the job. Blough won that job back. Sindelar had a really rough opening game, threw a couple picks against Northwestern early, kind of set them behind, really cost them a chance. They were coming on strong second half of that game. He's been great. Blough's been excellent for them. But what a passing offense they have overall. Really nice use of the receiving core. And that Rondale Moore, number 4, if you saw him in the Northwestern game on national TV, if you haven't seen him since, he is the all-purpose leader in yardage in the Big Ten. Overall, that is an offense that gets your attention fast. Yeah, I mean, they can score any play. So that's why I say you can't relax. This is where leverage on the ball is going to be important too, Jared. When they throw the pass, we got to converge on it and make good open field tackles. That's very important. I also think with Jeff Brom at the helm at Purdue, he's an innovative guy, a creative guy, and a guy who isn't afraid to do some unconventional things. For example, last week at Illinois, first half, they run a halfback pass back to Blough, who runs out in the flat, runs a really nice route, gets a great ball thrown to him, halfback pass for a touchdown. That's the kind of stuff they pull off all the time. They love to run reverses. They do some crazy stuff, and they do it with regularity. So as a coach, I'd imagine you've gone through 7 games of their game film, or 6 games of their game film, Bill, and I'd imagine you're just kind of, well, we got to prepare for this. And that's by design, right? At the end of the year, they want you to have to prepare for all those things. Yeah, spend practice time on it. Yeah. And so, you know, they might not run that play again, you know, this year, but there's going to be plenty of other trick plays. You know, one thing we always did, one of us as coaches was assigned to really research back the history of that, especially the coach, not necessarily the team, but the coach.
and see what trick plays he has used at other schools. And when we prepare our scouting report, actually would have trick plays drawn in there that coach had used before.
Yeah. Again, if you have questions, at JaredNBC4 on Twitter. You can also email me, jsmalley@wcmh.com. And we are on Facebook Live right now. So if you're watching us, if you're one of the folks who are tuning in on Facebook Live, we appreciate that. You can put a question right there in the comments section, and we'll get back to you. We've done that several times today, and here's another one. Micah, our buddy. Micah, how you doing, man? My concern, if I was a team in the NFL, is what the likelihood of Bosa re-injuring himself in the combine would be. And Micah, that's an interesting question. If we're talking about Nick Bosa again here, I think that is a big part of the decision-making here.
Absolutely.
I think their objective is to heal thoroughly, heal as much as he can possibly heal before they go ramping back up, trying to get back in combine shape. Because remember, training for the combine and training for football are two different things,
Two different things, yep. Yeah, you're speed training and doing a lot of things that you don't do in a week of practice. Now, here's the thing about it. You've got to be 100% going to that combine, because everybody will tell you, any NFL player will tell you, the toughest part of a combine is not the drills. The toughest part is going through the physicals, because every NFL team is going to check you out. And they're tugging at you, pulling at you, and things like that. And that is really physically exhausting, and they don't miss anything. Rarely will those doctors miss anything. So you got to get yourself 100%.
I thought you were going to say the toughest part was the interviews.
Oh, well.
To me, it would be.
Well, you know, they interviewed me one time, and they said, if you start in New York and you go to California, what direction do you go in? And I said, that's easy, left.
That's right. You go there, make nothing but lefts. End up in Miami, but that's not, you know, whatever. It's so good. At JaredNBC4, jsmalley@wcmh.com. If you want to get a question to us in here for the next few minutes, we'll be finishing up here at about 2:30. So we'd be more than happy to entertain your questions up to that point. One other thing that we want to talk about, Bill, here today, we haven't hit it yet. There was an injury pregame last week in the kicking game for the Buckeyes. Sean Nuernberger pulled a groin muscle. We didn't know anything about it. And then the game kicks off. The Buckeyes go score. And then Nuernberger's not out there for the extra point. We're all going, what in the, who? They did a really nice job. Went 3 for 3 last week on field goals without him. I just wonder if there's a little competition there now.
It was a home game. You didn't know you didn't think he missed a bus or
right.
anything like that. But yeah, that's why stretching is so important. I mean, that's what being a kicker is all about, punting and kicking. You have to have great flexibility, and you're continually working on that, and probably didn't quite get stretched out enough.
Yeah, and Blake Hobbill did a really nice job. They went 3 for 3. A guy they really highly recruited kicker.
Right.
A lot of people wanted him, so it wasn't like they were turning to a walk-on, a guy that had only kicked in soccer games before. They turned to a guy that could do the job, and he did an excellent job in that game. Urban was even asked this week if that job's open. Just throwing it out there. If you look on Saturday night, don't be surprised if Hobbill trots back out there to kick for the Buckeyes.
Absolutely.
Another thing we want to bring up here with Purdue, the trip over to West Lafayette. This is nothing that you're going to read about anywhere. This is just own personal experience and from Bill's coaching experience. If you're the visiting team, Purdue is one of the worst places to visit in the no, I forget that. It's the worst place to visit in the Big Ten. Their facilities for the road team. Actually, Jim Harbaugh last year brought it up as a point of discussion that it was not up to Big Ten standards, that it's rough. It is old, and you're looking for some of those creature comforts that these guys are accustomed to when they play these home games. Bill, this place is nothing like that. This is old school at Purdue.
Yeah, and if you're traveling to get there, there's no easy way in.
Right.
For the fan base. I mean, you got basically one road in, one road out. And, it's one of those things. They're a unique university in the sense that they really don't get any funds from the university for their athletics. It all has to be through gate receipts and through donations. So some of their facilities aren't as good as some other ones. But it's a tough place to play, and again, especially at night. So and it's a long ride home if you don't play well.
No kidding. That is a long ride. There's a couple of Buckeye players from the state of Indiana. Pete Werner, who we mentioned earlier,
right.
Who's come on strong here. And then Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin loves to play against Indiana teams. He loves to play in Indiana. You'll recall Big Ten championship game last year against Wisconsin. Terry McLaurin had that big touchdown early in the game, long touchdown. in his hometown of Indianapolis. I mean, so those guys are motivated. We always love to talk about the guys who come back to Ohio. They're playing these road games for a Big Ten team or for a non-conference team. If they're from the state of Ohio, of course, guys go everywhere.
Right.
When they come to Ohio State, how motivated they're going to be. Well, how about the guys from Indiana, their motivation? You think they're sleepwalking to the Purdue game? No way. They got plenty of friends and family to play in front of there.
Oh, yeah. When they go back home on the holidays and a little bit in the summer and stuff like that, they want to stick their chest out proudly because they played so well.
Yep.
And also represent their high school program. That's so important to a college player.
No doubt. One last call for questions. Jared, NBC4 on Twitter. Facebook Live, we're on right now. You put a question in the comments section there. And in our last few minutes here, we'll do our best to get you an answer. And I'm just checking through the Twitter here and see. You know what? Here's an interesting question about injuries. One of the results from the Minnesota game, Thayer Munford, the starting left tackle for the Buckeyes, left the game early, dealing with what we were told is a hip injury. I think the feeling is that he's going to try to play Saturday, but he hasn't practiced this week.
Right.
We learned that last night from Greg Stadros, the offensive line coach. So that, to me, is a little bit of a concern going into the game, a little inconsistency there. Not sure if he's 100% healthy. Of course, he's not 100% healthy, but if he'd be healthy enough to play football Saturday night against a team that when they know a guy's banged up, especially on the edge, you're going to come after him a little bit.
Yeah, if they're not 100% sure he's 100%, they probably won't start him. And they'll put him in, though, if they need him. If they see things aren't going well at that tackle spot, then they'll pull him off the bench and play him.
And Josh Alabi, I think, would be the backup there, so he would get the start if Thayer Munford didn't play. Otherwise, injury-wise, it's okay. A little bit better scenario than it was a week ago. We'll see about Damon Arnett and his availability. We're not quite sure there. But looks like the two defenders that were critical last week, missing them, Jonathan Cooper and the linebacker Malik Harrison, looks like they're both back in and ready to go for Purdue. I'd imagine that's going to affect play calling as well, scheming from the defensive side as well, knowing you've got those two guys at your disposal.
Absolutely. And, you know, healing up right now is important. And now you add next week, which is the bye week, you really have a chance to heal up. So it's important that we get through this game.
All right. We're going to wrap it up at this point. I do want to let you know that we have a lot of programming coming your way all this week on NBC4. Friday night, NBC4 at 7, Scarlet and Gray Weekly. Coach and I are going to break down not only the Minnesota game, but a look ahead to the Purdue game. Some really cool features in that show. And then we'll have live pregame and postgame coverage from West Lafayette Saturday night as the Buckeyes try to get to 8-0. And then, most importantly for the players, get to that bye week. Do you think how badly are they starving for a bye week at this point?
Well, they want to get through this one, but they are ready to have a little time to themselves.
I mean, talk about, I'm bruised. I haven't done anything this season. Thanks so much for watching us online here at NBC4i.com, on Facebook Live, and on Twitter. And